Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 28. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It's a well-known verse, so I'll chant line by line and you can follow after me, presuming you know it, or you can catch it by hearing. Ete changsha kala pungsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge Ete changsha kala pungsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge Ete changsha kala pungsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. Translation: all of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets. Whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists, the Lord incarnates to protect the theists. Purport. In this particular stanza, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is distinguished from other incarnations. He is counted among the avatars, incarnations, because out of His causeless mercy the Lord descends from His transcendental abode. Avatar means one who descends. All the incarnations of the Lord, including the Lord Himself, descend on the different planets of the material world, as also in different species of life, to fulfill particular missions. Sometimes He comes Himself, and sometimes his different plenary portions, or parts of the plenary portions, or His differentiated portions, directly or indirectly empowered by Him, descend on this material world to execute certain specific functions. Originally, the Lord is full of all opulences, all prowess, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. When they are partly manifested through the plenary portions or parts of the plenary portions, it should be noted that certain manifestations of His different powers are required for those particular functions. When in the room small electric bulbs are displayed, it does not mean that the electric powerhouse is limited by the small bulbs. The same powerhouse can supply power to operate large-scale industrial dynamos with greater volts. Similarly, the incarnations of the Lord display limited powers because so much power is needed at that particular time. For example, Lord Parashurama and Lord Nrsimha displayed unusual opulence by killing the disobedient Kshatriyas 21 times and killing the greatly powerful atheist Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was so powerful that even the demigods in other planets would tremble simply by the unfavorable raising of his eyebrow. The demigods in the higher level of material existence many, many times excel the most well-to-do human beings in duration of life, beauty, wealth, paraphernalia, and all other respects. Still, they were afraid of Hiranyakashipu. Thus, we can simply imagine how powerful Hiranyakashipu was in this material world. But even Hiranyakashipu was cut into small pieces by the nails of Lord Nrsimha. This means that anyone materially powerful cannot stand the strength of the Lord's nails. Similarly, Jamadagnya, which means Parashuram, Jamadagnya displayed the Lord's power to kill all the disobedient kings powerfully situated in their respective states. The Lord's empowered incarnation Narada and plenary incarnation Varaha, as well as indirectly empowered Lord Buddha, created faith in the mass of people. The incarnations of Rama and Dhanvantari displayed his fame, and Balaram, Mohini, and Vamana exhibited his beauty. Dattatreya, Matsya, Kumara, and Kapila exhibited his transcendental knowledge. Nara and Narayana rishis exhibited his renunciation. So all the different indirectly or directly empowered incarnations of the Lord manifested different features. But Lord Krishna, the primeval Lord, exhibited the complete features of Godhead, and thus it is confirmed that He is the source of all other incarnations. And the most extraordinary feature exhibited by Lord Sri Krishna was his internal energetic manifestation of his pastimes with the cowherd girls. His pastimes with the gopis are all displays of transcendental existence, bliss, and knowledge, although these are manifested apparently as sex love. The specific attraction of his pastimes with the gopis should never be misunderstood. The Bhagavatam relates these transcendental pastimes in the 10th canto. And in order to reach the position to understand the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, the Bhagavatam promotes the student gradually in 9 other cantos. According to Srila Jiva Goswami's statement in accordance with authoritative sources, Lord Krishna is the source of all other incarnations. It is not that Lord Krishna has any source of incarnation. All the symptoms of the Supreme Truth in full are present in the person of Lord Sri Krishna, and in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord emphatically declares that there is no truth greater than or equal to himself. In this stanza, the word Swayam is particularly mentioned to confirm that Lord Krishna has no other source than himself. Although in other places the incarnations are described as Bhagavan because of their specific functions, nowhere are they declared to be the Supreme Personality. In this stanza, the word Swayam indicates the supremacy as the Summum Bonum. The Summum Bonum, Krishna, is one without a second. He himself has expanded himself in various parts, portions, and particles as Swayam Rupa, Swayam Prakash, Tadekatma, Prabhava, Vaibhava, Vilasa, Avatara, Avesh, and Jivas, all provided with innumerable energies just suitable to the respective persons and personalities. Learned scholars in transcendental subjects have carefully analyzed the Summum Bonum, Krishna, to have 64 principal attributes. All the expansions or categories of the Lord possess only some percentages of these attributes. But Sri Krishna is the possessor of the attributes cent%. And his personal expansion, such as Swayam Prakash, Tad Ekatma, up to the categories of the avatars, who are all Vishnu Tattva, possess up to 93% of these transcendental attributes. Lord Shiva, who is neither avatar nor avish, nor in between them, possesses almost 84% of the attributes. But the jivas, or the individual living beings in different statuses of life, possess up to the limit of 78% of the attributes. In the conditioned state of material existence, the living being possesses these attributes in very minute quantity, varying in terms of the pious life of the living being. The most perfect of living beings is Brahma, the supreme administrator of one universe. He possesses 78% of the attributes in full. All other demigods have the same attributes in less quantity, whereas human beings possess the attributes in very minute quantity. The standard of perfection for a human being is to develop the attributes up to 78% in full. The living being can never possess attributes like Shiva, Vishnu, or Lord Krishna. A living being can become godly by developing the 78% transcendental attributes in fullness, but he can never become a god like Shiva, Vishnu, or Krishna. He can become a Brahma in due course. The godly living beings, who are all residents of the planets in the spiritual sky, are eternal associates of God in different spiritual planets called Haridhama and Maheshdhama. The abode of Lord Krishna above all spiritual planets is called Krishna Loka, or Goloka Vrindavan, and the perfected living beings, by developing 78% of the above attributes in fullness, can enter the planet of Krishna Loka after leaving the present body. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Namasrishtam Manamapi Shachiputra Matra Sarupa Rupam Tasya Gajam Uruprim Matari Koshtavarti Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasha Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padikamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagarna Raghunathan Vidam Tam Sajiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Virgina Saita Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagarna Lalita Shri Vishaka Vidastra Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan Tina Smarane Vaibhidvinasha Anayashaya Nijavajita Puran Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yeah, so a very well-known verse, and in particular this one line from this verse is very well known within our Gauriya Sampradaya in particular. Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam, which underlines the transcendental fact, understandable from Srimad Bhagavatam, not possible to understand by any material means, but understandable from the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. Srila Jiva Goswami has described this one line, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original form of the personality of Godhead. He's called this the Paribhasha Sutra of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The formula by which the whole Bhagavatam is to be understood. And all of us going through Bhagavatam, we take it as axiomatic that the Bhagavatam speaks of Krishna not only as the personality of Godhead. That may sound like a strange statement. What is greater than the personality of Godhead? But he is the supreme personality of Godhead. There are other forms also. So many other forms. Avataram hiya sankheyam. There are uncountable avatars. Especially if we take into account the vibhutis, or the forms which, in the material world, which are recognized as representations of Krishna, such as those mentioned by Krishna in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and a similar list is there in his instructions to Uddhava. Some are the same as he says in Bhagavad Gita, and some are different. But the point is that Krishna is making in that chapter, at the request of Arjuna, who asked Krishna to describe Krishna's vibhutis. And Krishna said a few. Aham Atma Gura Kesha, beginning with I am Atma, Sarvabhuta Hriday Stita. I am the Atma situated in the heart of every created being. But after describing a few, Krishna says, well, there's no real point in going on, because Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam Srimad urjitam eva va tat eva changso swam mamate jongsa sambhavam. Whatever is there which seems mighty, glorious, opulent in this world, you should know it to spring from but a spark of my splendor. So in this way, everything can be taken as a manifestation of Krishna, which it is. Direct and indirect. Sthavara jangam deke na deke tar murti sarvatra hoitar ishta deva svurti. Great devotees, they don't exactly see, or they see the forms of various entities in this world, moving forms such as those moving in and out of this pandal, and stationary forms such as the pandal itself, which is temporarily stationary. Probably by this afternoon or tomorrow morning latest, it won't be here in this form. But the pure devotee, they see everything, but they see it in relation to Krishna, or as a manifestation of Krishna's energies. I was told many years ago that a devotee had asked Srila Prabhupada, well, what do you see? What do you see in regard to this statement that a pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere? So what do you see when you see a tree? Srila Prabhupada was asked, do you see Krishna Srila Prabhupada said, I see a tree, but I know it's Krishna's tree. He sees everything in relation to Krishna. That's one way of seeing. And it may be, particularly when Krishna shows his universal form. In the 10th chapter, Arjuna asked Krishna to describe the vibhutis. And in the 11th chapter, he wanted to see them with his eyes. So then Krishna showed the whole universe. Arjuna is situated in one place, but he could see all the universal manifestations. So these are manifestations within the material world, and then there are manifestations who come from the spiritual world to the material world. They're called avatars, and 10 among them are particularly famous: Matsya Karma, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, and so on. Vamana, Parashuram, Rama, Balaram, Buddha, and Kalki. They're particularly famous. Krishna is sometimes counted in the 10 avatars also. There are different lists. Now, Krishna is mentioned in this list here in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavatam as an avatar. But at the same time, he is known as Avatari, the source of all the avatars. And this is the way we see the Bhagavatam. When we go through the Bhagavatam, we do it in the consciousness or with the understanding that Krishna is the original form of the personality of Godhead. An example is given, well known, in Brahma Sanghita. Dipachireva hidashantaram abhyupetya dipayate vivrita hetu samana dharma yas tadrageva hija vishnu taya vibhati govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. With one candle, which is a light, you can light many other candles. Or here it said deepam. So Srila Prabhupada used the word candle, which is more understandable in the Western world. With one candle you can light many other candles, and they all burn with the same brightness, but there's still one original from which the others are lit. So in the same way, Krishna is the original form of the personality of Godhead. Ramadi, again in Brahma Sanghita, Ramadi murtishu kalani amena tishtan nanavataram akarod bhuvaneshu kintu Krishna swayam samabhavat paramapumanyo Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Again and again emphasizing Govinda, Adi Purusha. This is the Adi Purusha, Govinda, who Brahma worships. Forms beginning with Rama, they descend on this earth. They're all avatars of the Supreme Lord, but Krishna is the original form. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. There's also Govinda in the Vaikuntha worlds. Krishna in the Vaikuntha worlds, four-handed form. So which is the Govinda who Brahma worships? That one, Venung Kvananta Maravinda Dalaya Taksham Barhavatang Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarapa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Brahma is very specific. This is the Govinda who I'm worshipping. Who plays on a flute, whose eyes are beautiful like a lotus petal, who has a peacock feather decoration on his head, who is dark like the hue of a beautiful and dark like a rain cloud, whose beauty How will we describe his beauty? We can refer to the God of love, but if we take millions and millions of gods of love, known as Kamadeva or Cupid in English, somehow that idea of Cupid with a bow shooting is there in, at least in English culture. Is it there in Russia? Do you have the idea of Cupid? It must come from Vedic culture. In the very center of London is a figure of Eros, which is the Greek word for Cupid. Naked, young boy with a bow and arrow, shooting an arrow of love. That's the center of Western civilization, lust. But this Krishna, he's attractive too, and more attractive than millions of Cupids. So this is who we're referring to, how Brahma is referring to. And that whole Brahma Samhita, which we know of, those prayers, beginning with the 5th chapter, 29th verse, Govindamadi Purusham, they all uphold this principle, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. And the very first verse also of that 5th chapter, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam, which Srila Prabhupada quoted at the very beginning of his Krishna book. Srila Prabhupada, so what does it mean? The supreme controller, the supreme opulent person is Krishna. Transcendental form of eternity, knowledge and bliss. He is the origin of everything. Of him there is no origin. He is the cause of all causes. He's also known as Govinda, the giver of pleasure to the cows, the senses, and the earth. So Srila Prabhupada put this at the very beginning of his Krishna book, giving that in English to the world without the preliminary 9 cantos of Bhagavatam, the summary of the 10th canto. So what are we to understand in the 9th cantos to enter into the 10th canto? That is summarized, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. It's all summarized in that one verse. So that in itself is like a sutra. Sutra means you say a lot in very few words, which usually means that it's not understandable at face value to everyone. It needs explaining. Just like the very first word, or combination of 2 words in the Brahma Sutras, or the Dharma Sutras for that matter, atato, therefore, now, what therefore is the beginning, which might seem strange, because something should come before it. If you walk up to a stranger and say, therefore, you walk up on the street, we go and sell books, and go to someone and say, therefore, it's a strange way to open an exchange. There's something should come before it. So therefore, what does it mean? Now, what does it mean? Well, everyone knows what now means 8:33 and 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Whenever you say now, if you say now, between the n at the beginning and the w at the end, it's no longer now. Time is running on. I discussed that in that Sanat, discussion of time in Vishnu Sahasranam. What does now mean exactly? It's like a point in geometry. You need points to make lines, but as soon as you draw a point, it's not a point. There's no such thing as a point. So geometry is all bogus because it's based on points. And as soon as you visualize a point, it must have a beginning and an end. It must have a circumference, must have a size. But a point can't have that by definition. So how did I get onto that? Whoops, I got lost. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sutras, they need explaining. Now can be taken as the human form of life. Now can mean in conjunction with therefore in the Brahma Sutras. Now that you've been through all those Dharma Sutras and found out that it only takes you up to heaven and brings you down again and up, down, up, down, up, down, is all miserable. Okay, let's inquire about Brahma. And then the question is Jignasa. That's the one word in the first sutra of Brahma Sutras, which is pretty straightforward. Of course, who and from what source we should inquire, that is not easy, but at least it's fairly clear. And what is Brahma? That is explained in the next sutra, Janmadyasya Yataha, which if you just read it or hear it without explanation, it can make it has no meaning. Beginning with birth. What is that birth? What's it in relation to anyway? It is in relation to Brahma, but what is Brahma? King Tad Brahma Kimadhyatma, Arjuna asked. And then from which there is birth, etc. It needs explaining. And it's understood, all the acharyas explain. Here, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam, it seems very clear and obvious to us because we receive it from the Gauriya Acharyas, and the Bhagavatam seems to point to that. But another major commentator, Vaishnava Acharya, our Acharya, Madhva Acharya, he does not accept that Krishna is the original supreme form. The Sri Vaishnavas who predominate here in Tirupati, we know very well that they say that Vishnu Narayana form is original, from whom Krishna comes, and Vishnu four-handed form is original. And this discussion is taken up by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami at the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, citing evidence from Bhagavatam. But the Sri Vaishnavas, they put more emphasis on, well, in philosophy, on the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutras, but as far as the personality of Godhead, they put more emphasis on the Vishnu Purana, and from that they conclude, very rightly, according to Vishnu Purana, that the original form is Vishnu. But then Jiva Goswami establishes Srimad Bhagavatam, which itself states that it's the Purana Mamalam, Vaishnavanam Priyam. He establishes Srimad Bhagavatam on the strength of Srimad Bhagavatam as the topmost Vedic evidence. And then Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. And the topmost Vedic evidence is, as stated by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaishcha sarverahameva vedyaha. What are you looking for in the Vedas? What is the ultimate object to be known in the Vedas? Krishna himself. And who is that Krishna? Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Madhvacharya, who's another major commentator on the Bhagavatam, rejects this idea that Krishna is the original form. So what does he say? Does he say that Narayan is the original form and all other forms are subservient to him? No. So what does he say? He says they're all the same. They're all equal. You can't say one's better than another. They're different perspectives. Philosophically, it can be difficult to untangle because different words can be interpreted in different ways. Madhvacharya interprets this Krishna's to Bhagavan Swami differently to the Jiva Goswami and other Vaishnava. Gauriya Acharyas take it. And even the Mayavadis, many Mayavadis also comment on Bhagavatam. And their conclusion is, yeah, it's a good time to spit. Yeah, that's whatever their conclusion is. Really. Srila Prabhupada uses this phrase, the Mayavadis shouldn't poke their nose in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not meant for them. He said that Shankaracharya, out of respect, didn't touch the Bhagavatam. The Mayavadis, they shouldn't poke their nose in there. It's not meant for them. But there are many statements. If you come with the idea of undifferentiated monism, which is only an idea, which you can talk about, but it's impossible to conceptualize. I don't know, it seems the Mayavadis do it, but that everything is all one without any variety. What is nothing? I saw an exchange between one famous, at least somewhat famous in Britain, talk show host by the name of Piers Morgan, I think that's how it's pronounced. And he was discussing with a well-known atheist, Richard Dawkins. So this Piers Morgan, who identifies himself as a Christian, one of the approximately 2% in Britain of the population who identify themselves as Christians. So he asked Richard Dawkins, well, what was before the Big Bang if there was just nothing? He said you can't even think about what nothing is. It's a good comment, actually. And Richard Dawkins, trying to control his anger, you see, he got all red. He said, don't ask me, you should ask a physicist. Well, if I'd have been in that situation, I, as Piers Morgan, would have asked Richard Dawkins, well, hey, look, you're promoting this Big Bang. You're promoting atheism. He said, I'm an evolutionary biologist, Richard Dawkins says. So, okay, your evolutionary biology is based on the hypothesis that originally there was nothing. Or sometimes they say there was nothing, and sometimes they say there was unlimited mass in an infinitesimal point, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it. It's impossible. Then naturally it exploded. But before that there was nothing. And Richard Dawkins says, well, don't ask me, ask a physicist. So I would have asked, if I'd had the presence of mind, that, well, you're promoting atheism based on this theory. Did you ask a physicist? Because someone like me is going to ask you that question, right? What is nothing? Piers Morgan said, you can't even imagine what it is to be nothing. Well, with all due fairness for the Mayavadis, they say there's not nothing. They don't say there's nothing. They say there's something, but it has no characteristics, which means it's nothing. It's a roundabout way. Well, they say, yeah, it has characteristics, Satchit Ananda, but there's no referent point for that Sat or Chit or Ananda. Sat, Chit and Ananda, eternity, knowledge and bliss, from as what we can understand, there has to be some reference to something, but if there is no thing because it's near a Vishesha, then how can there be Satchit Ananda? So anyway, Mayavadis, they want to explain the Bhagavatam. And when Srila Prabhupada was present, the most famous Bhagavat reciter in India, means in North India, because the Bhagavatam is more popular in North India, was based in Vrindavan, and his ashram is still there. Of course, he's passed away. It's not far from the ISKCON temple on the Parikrama Marg. He was a Mayavadi, Pakka, full-scale Mayavadi. He explained the Bhagavatam in impersonal terms. How can you do that? Well, it is possible, because there are many statements in Bhagavatam which might appear to be lending themselves to impersonalism if we know of the impersonal philosophy of Shankaracharya. I wonder if before Shankaracharya had made his, or given form to his philosophy of formlessness, if the Bhagavatam would be understood in those ways. Just like when we read Kaivalya, one name of Krishna, said by Kunti, is Kaivalya Pati. And the word Kaivalya, even in Bhagavatam itself, often refers to a state of corresponding to impersonal realization or impersonal existence. So it is possible. It's possible to interpret in various ways. That doesn't mean that all the interpretations are correct. It doesn't mean that only one is correct also. Because Krishna can be seen in different ways, and that's one facet of the Supreme Lord. He's seen in different ways by different people. When he entered the wrestling arena of Kamsa, the wrestlers thought that he's like a thunderbolt. They try to make their bodies very tough and hard and strong. He was seen like that. They saw him in those terms. And that's there with everyone. The same woman, Chanakya said, is seen by her husband, as the wife, by the son, as a mother, by other men as a beautiful woman, by her mother as a daughter, by a dog as a piece of flesh. The same breasts of one woman are seen differently by the husband and by the son. The baby son sees the breasts, source of nourishment. So that is there with everyone. And Krishna's too, Bhagavan Swayam. He's the supreme personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada made a sutra in English to express this. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. A lot of emphasis on the word personality. So this is a sutra by which we understand Bhagavatam. We are trained to understand Bhagavatam in this way. And the whole of reality is Krishna? Who are we in relation to all of that? Then we come to another sutra given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jiva Swarup Krishna Nityadas. Just in a few words, we find everything we need to know about ourselves in sutra form, encapsulated form. Who am I? What is the purpose of my life? These are the big questions. What is the ultimate reality? Atato Brahma Jignasa. All of the philosophy of the world is encapsulated in this. Atato Brahma Jignasa. That can be expanded to Labdva, or that's expressed in more expanded form. Uttishtata, Jagrata, Prapya, Varang, Nibodhata. Get up, wake up, become aware of the boon which is available to you. And then in the Bhagavatam, in various verses, Labdva sudurlavamidam bahusambhavante manusham ardham anityam api hadhira turnam yatetanapatedanu mrityayava nishrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvatasyat. Having obtained this rare human form of life, after many, many births, knowing it to be temporary, a sober person doesn't endeavor for sense gratification, which is available in all species of life, but quickly, immediately, makes the endeavor, knowing that he's going to die soon, to do what is required not to get born again. What do we need to do? That's also explained in Gita. Janma karma cha me divyam evang yo veti tattvataha tyaktva dehang punarjanma naiti mam eti sorjuna. One, Krishna says, a person who understands my, Krishna's, birth and activities to be not of the nature of this world, to be transcendental. Such a person, upon giving up the body, doesn't get born again, but comes to me, and then he doesn't come back again. Again, we have in Vedanta Sutra, why should you inquire into Brahma? Why is that? Well, that's seen from Mukti, and that's summarized at the end. Anavriti Shabdat. Liberation comes from sound. Shastra Yonitvat. How are we to understand this Brahma? Where are you going to inquire? You have to understand from Shastra. In short form, everything is there. Few sutras, which if we can understand, then we'll be on the right course. Jiva Swarup Krishna Nityadas. By constitution, we are all eternal servants of Krishna. First of all, we are Jiva. That very word Jiva summarizes the whole beginning of the philosophical instruction of Bhagavad Gita, which the Jiva is differentiated. The living being is distinguished from the non-living. There is the Sat and the Asat. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. That which is eternal, the living being. Avinashi tu tadvidi yena sarva medang tatam. The living being which is in the body, which is material, which is asat, it's material. It's the living force, the jiva. It gives life to that body. It spreads consciousness throughout the body. So we are jiva, we are not. That one word encapsulates so much. We're not a product of matter. We are jiva eternally. So what are we doing in a material body? Jiva, our real form is as the eternal servant of Krishna. So then we can understand encapsulated sutra, Jiva Swarupai Krishna Nityadas. We are eternal living beings, but we are eternally servants of Krishna It's not that the jiva becomes Shiva, as some people like to make a little rhyme. Actually, the jiva is Shiva in the sense that he's auspicious, but by nature, but not in the sense that he's Mahadev. And not in the sense that Shankara thinks that jiva means actually everything is all one, and now we're jivas, and then you just, when you become liberated, because you don't really exist as a separate entity anyway, and then you just merge into the oneness. And there's so many strange ideas. But jiva swarup, that very word swarup, it opposes Shankara's philosophy of formlessness. And what is that? Krishna Nityadas. We're eternal servants of Krishna. Then what are we doing here in this material world? The next line of this verse isn't so well known, but it's also very important. Jiva Surupoi Krishna Nityadas Krishna Tatasta Shakti Bheda Bhed Prakash. We have the words there, Bheda Bhed. The jiva is different from Bhagavan, non-different from him. We are marginal energy, which means we can go this way or we can go that way. We can go in the material existence, we can go in the spiritual existence. Just a few words. Jiva Surupoi Krishna Nityadas. That is based on the understanding Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna, okay, he's supreme. Who am I? I am an eternal servant of Krishna. So from these few words, the whole Vedic knowledge is expanded. Mukunda Datta Prabhu told me something interesting. Earlier this month, maybe in Nagarkoil. It was earlier? No, it was last month. Anyway, these are somewhat arbitrary divisions of time for our understanding. He had been in university, and he told me that the endeavor in universities is to take a lot of knowledge and express it in a short form. Try and encapsulate it. But our process is more like we take some small statement and expand on it. So both things are going on. The Sutrakartas, of whom Vyasadeva made the Brahma Sutras, he took so much knowledge and put it in short form. Then again he expanded it as Srimad Bhagavatam. He made the Brahma Sutras, Vedanta Sutras, expanded it as Srimad Bhagavatam. Then Shukadeva Goswami expanded it more. And it's going on expanding. It's going on and on expanding. Every time we speak on Bhagavatam, the glories of Krishna are being expressed somewhat different way, somewhat different realization. No one can fully describe Krishna. I'll finish this talk on this topic with a statement that was made by Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers. He said that if all the Vedic literature was lost, you've probably heard this before, but it's not exactly the same. If only the Srimad Bhagavatam remained, this Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there would be no loss. If only the Bhagavatam remained. But Puri Maharaj said, if only one verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita remained, you could reconstruct the whole Vedic literature from that. Hard to guess what that might be. What is it? Atendriya priti vancha tare bale kam krishnendriya priti ichha dhare premanam. The desire for personal sense enjoyment is called kama, material desire. And the desire to satisfy Krishna's transcendental senses is called prem, or actual love. Now what is this karma, this very powerful force that keeps us in the material world? Again, we have the word Atma there. So we are beings, living beings with living means desire, and the desire directed toward personal sense gratification, that is called karma, and that binds us in the material world. And desire for, that brings us to another very important sutra, Krishnarte Akila Cheshta. All endeavors should be for Krishna's happiness. Everything for Krishna. You can select some few short statements and we can get the whole philosophy in short, and then expand it unlimitedly. Bhagavatam, commentaries on Bhagavatam. We see that Bhanu Swami Maharaj has been very busy for the last so many years translating so many books, so many commentaries. I asked him recently, what are you going to work on next? He said, I don't know. He's been through so many of the commentaries. I suggest maybe the Puranas. He said, yeah, they've mostly been translated. Which mostly they have, the main Puranas. It may not be very good translations, but a lot of translations are not very good. What do you do at the end of it all? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam. There's another good sutra, right? Kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva. Gatir anyata. Everything's there. Rig Veda, Tayajar Veda, Atharva Veda, Samaveda, Piyatarvana. What's the next line? Aditas tena yenogdvam harir etyaksharadvayam. Madhvacharya quoted this, and Srila Prabhupada quoted Madhvacharya quoting this from Shastra, that anyone who says these two syllables, ha-ri, is understood. They've studied all the Vedas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Do you want to add a comment to this, Mukunda Prabhu? He could give another whole talk, taking one word. You can listen to his lectures. Very valuable. Now, after many years, there's some site, a website or something with his lectures, so you can type in and find it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.